And it's just great to watch that shame turn into something like so beautiful.
Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to be interviewing the one and only Ash Morgan. She is a musician, she's a TikTok star, she's an Instagram star. She has an empire, honestly. We recently asked you guys what kind of videos you wanted from us, and a lot of you said you wanted more interviews. And we don't have any content with lesbians, I don't think. I think we had Maya DeLynn, who's pansexual, but yeah, this will be our first lesbian interview, so I'm excited. Ash lives in Arizona, so we're having to do this via Zoom, and it's all very strange, and I just hope it's going to come together in editing.
Woo, FaceTime interview, let's go.
First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about your life growing up Mormon? You were born into a Mormon family, and just kind of your journey in the church, you know, like how into it were you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, it's so hard to like decide what all things to bring up and what not to, because this is such a long story. But to be brief, I was raised the oldest of 6 kids in a very Mormon family. I love my parents. They're super awesome. They're both very religious still, but they've been very like loving and accepting of me, which I consider myself very lucky for. I was the most Mormon. I never even considered that it could be not true. I always thought that I had the gift of faith, and I just prescribed to the beliefs that I was supposed to like get married, find a man to marry, have kids, have a good life, that Mormon good, you know? So I actually went up to Provo when I was 18, because that's where you find the best husbands, I've heard. And yeah, I met a guy. I was 19 and he was 26 when we got married, so always a good time. It just seemed like the next best step for me, and I'd always been told my whole life that you marry your best friend. That's what I considered romance to be, was deep friendship. I'd never been like a very sexual person, because I was so holy, I never did anything wrong before I got married, and I just thought that I was just ultra righteous, and that's why I wasn't tempted with any of my boyfriends or anything. So, you know, we were married for a couple years, and I was so ultra Mormon that I was one of those Mormons who thought she was really happy in the church and thought that the church brought her great joy. But I finally realized that I was doing 110%, and it was actually making me super depressed. So I was like working out of the temple when I left the church, actually. Like I went from 110%. I was doing all the rituals for people. I actually started working at the temple in an attempt to try to get closer to God. I was like, I haven't had all these spiritual experiences everyone's talking about in the temple, but I feel like I should be, so I'm gonna go devote like 6 hours a week from like 6 a.m. to 12 every Wednesday and hope that some blessings come and I get some great inspiration, and I didn't. And I don't know, I just hit this point. I was actually on splits with the sister missionaries because I felt like I had to do 110%, and I was there, and for some reason something just felt wrong to me. Like it just felt dirty. I can't even explain it. It's like my shelf was cracking a little, and I went home and I just was like, God, I don't want to do this. Like I wish I could just be a little like witch and just like do all these like hippie witchy things, and that could be my life, and I didn't have to like be a Mormon. But I know the Mormon church is true, so I'm just gonna take a little break from it. So I actually just took a break from the church. I was married at the time, and I told my husband, I'm just going to take a week break. I'm not going to go to church. I'm not going to think about reading my scriptures every day. I'm not going to like let it consume my life and stress me out. And he was like, yeah, that's a really good idea, because he wasn't even as intense as I was. But yeah, once I gave myself that break, I was like, oh, like what is this anti-Mormon literature everybody's been talking about? Like if the church is true, then like reading up on the history isn't going to change that. And yeah, read the CES letter all in one night, and by the end I was like, nope, this is not true. So it was just like, it was a quick one for me. It was like my gut was just like, no. And then as soon as I did that, all these things came rushing in. I was instantly after that, after I finished the CES letter, I was like, I'm a lesbian. I just like knew it deep in my gut. It was something I'd been repressing for a long time. And I was like, the church is not good to women. It's not good to people of color. There's just all around I'm not even like a super conservative person, but I've been playing that role because I feel like that's what I have to. It just all came crashing down for me all at once.
So obviously very Mormon growing up, as you said, but you're a lesbian. So how did that work out? Like when did you realize in your life that you were attracted to women, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think a lot of queer people go through this, who start figuring things out a little later in life. They start like looking back on all the experiences that were like so obvious in their personal like development when they were younger of like, oh wow, that was a crush, or oh wow, that was like really gay. And I just like, I don't know, I just assumed everyone thought that girls were prettier than guys. Like I just thought everyone knew that. I thought that was just an established fact and that girls got guys and that's how it was. I remember like when I was like 8 years old, my family went to we went to like a hotel and I found this random like swimsuit catalog in one of the drawers, and I like took it home with me and cut out all these pictures of girls in bikinis, and I felt so guilty about that. I ended up like taking it out and putting it in the big trash can out in my garage, and I was like, I need to tell my mom, because I had such like an atonement complex, and I was like, no, I can't tell her, because if it was guys I could tell her, but I know that like looking at girls is bad, so I just can't tell her that. So I had like this deep shame from a young age, so I just kind of suppressed it. I like told myself I liked guys, I liked the idea of them liking me. I would date them, get bored of them within like a month and break up with them. I had a crush on a girl in high school, but who had a girlfriend, but I was like, no, like I'm learning to be an ally. Like I just think she's really cool, and I'm realizing like, you know, gay people are like normal too, you know. But looking back, I like had a huge crush on her. But yeah, it wasn't until I got married and had some kind of like sexual issues within my marriage, as most Mormons have when they get married. I went to a really cool Mormon sex therapist who told me that I should masturbate, and I was like, that is the worst thing you could possibly do. That's so bad. I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to do. I literally knew nothing about female pleasure at all. And yeah, my husband told me I should look at some porn for science as like a introductory into what to do. And when I saw another naked girl, I was like, oh my god, I think she's hotter than my husband. Like that was just like the first thought in my brain. I was like, that's so bad. That's Satan. Satan is like in my mind. It's because I looked at porn. This is so bad. But yeah, that was like the seed in my mind, that where I ever even first considered it. And then throughout my marriage, that was just a thing in the back of my mind that I just suppressed constantly. So I was like, this is normal. This is Satan. It's just Satan. We're fine.
Classic Satan. So you'd experienced attraction for women throughout your life, but you still sort of told yourself you were straight and that was just kind of, you know, not a thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't an option in my mind. It wasn't even a thing I really even considered. Even though there were some really gay things that I can think of in high school that I did not connect the dots. I didn't think. I like had so much, I just like made up reasons for everything, which I think a lot of people do with a lot of different sins, you know, you just like rationalize.
Okay, so tell us about your coming out journey then. What did that look like? I think, didn't you come out as bisexual first?
Like I said earlier, I left the Mormon church and it was like this instant thought, like, I'm a lesbian. I started taking those Am I Gay quizzes online. I watched a bunch of like queer YouTubers and found like queer music artists that I would listen to, but I felt like I had to do it all in secret from my husband. But finally just got to this place where I was like, okay, my relationship is really bad. It's not great. I should probably get out of this in some way. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with him about like how I've been feeling. And I told him that I thought that I was lesbian, and that did not go well. Obviously he didn't respond positively, which I do not blame him at all. Like, of course, like who's gonna enjoy their partner telling them that they're not attracted to their gender at all. So I retracted that. I felt really guilty about it, and I was like, no, I think I'm probably just bisexual, and it's just this new thing that's like exciting in my brain. Like, it's fine, I'll try to work things out with my husband. We're married, I want to try to make it work. But yeah, the feelings just kept on coming up, and our relationship just had so many other things that were not healthy, so eventually just got to the point where that was one of the final straws. We were going to therapy about it and stuff, and that was one of many final things that kind of just tipped us over the edge to get divorced. So yeah, we were married for 3 years. I got divorced at age 22. I was convinced that I was a lesbian right after we got divorced, but I mean, I have a lot of compassion for myself now looking back on it, because coming out of a serious relationship, I think you don't really know how to flirt anymore anyway as it is, let alone with a whole new gender. I'd never experienced that before at all, and flirting with girls was so hard for me, like gave me the most anxiety. And for some reason, and I think it's just the universe, I think we all have different timing and when things are supposed to like come into our lives, but for some reason, like I didn't know any queer people, so my only options were dating apps, and I just wasn't meeting anybody that I was like into, and I didn't want to force anything with someone I wasn't actually attracted to. So that was just kind of my thing with girls. And I had multiple guys who were reaching out to me and were just pursuing me pretty heavily. And so I just like developed a deep friendship with one of them, and we started dating. We dated for a year because it was more comfortable for me. Like dating men I was so much more comfortable with that. I was used to them pursuing me, them making all the moves, them doing everything first. Being that person was really difficult for me at first, especially after leaving a marriage that like left my confidence in pieces. Like I literally was so insecure. And so I'm kind of glad I didn't bring that into like a serious lesbian relationship with someone and like brought all my issues into that, you know? But yeah, I dated him for a year, and it was awesome because he was so open with me that he helped me kind of like figure myself out and was a safe place for me. And we ended up breaking up because it just got to a point where I was like, I can't hold this in any longer. Like I'm trying to make this thing work. I'm trying to tell myself that I'm bi, and I'm trying to like not care about gender. I was like, I'm just pansexual. Like gender doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like I'm with someone who loves me and it's awesome. But it finally just at this point where I'm like, no, this is this thing that is like this deep shame and deep thing in the back of my mind constantly, and I feel guilty. I feel almost like I'm cheating on my partner just to be like thinking these feelings all the time and feeling like I have this part of me that I'm not like looking into. So thank God I kind of like nurtured my confidence in myself and like my belief in trusting my intuition and my gut, because I just was so disconnected from that. And yeah, we broke up, and I started dating just girls, and I was so much more just confident in myself. It was really, really, really hard. So for all you gabies who are starting to date the same gender, trust me, the first few months are kind of hell a little bit, and you feel like you don't know what you're doing. You feel like you're thrust back into junior high, but it's so worth the discomfort, because I realized even when I was so stressed dating girls, I was like, girls make me like nervous and uncomfortable in a way that guys never did, and that is so proof to me that like I'm just not into guys. Like I don't look at a guy and I'm just so into him, and with girls it was that way. So yeah, every day I would kind of be like, how did I ever think I liked guys? How did I ever think I liked guys? But it was a process.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your life is way better now that you're actually living authentically and dating girls. What's been like your favorite part of having your first girlfriend, and what's that experience been like?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing has just been like this, God, I'm gonna get like emotional. This overarching feeling of peace. I feel like I had this constant feeling of shame like looming over me for feeling the way that I did, and feeling guilt that I was feeling that way while I had these male partners, and like I wasn't being a good partner, or that I was a bad person and I was feeling the way that I was. And just to like have that gone, lifted, and that's huge. It's huge just to feel like I actually don't have to feel like guilt or shame about that, and to be able to like live in that and be like view my attraction to women as like a blessing now, and like how grateful I am to be a woman who gets to love a woman. Like I wouldn't change that at all. And it's just great to watch that shame turn into something like so beautiful, like to feel like, wow, like such a sense of gratitude for this thing that I used to like despise about myself. It's been really great. And yeah, just being able to like connect to another human being in all the ways that I feel like you're allowed to and meant to experience with somebody, you know, like be able to like have a genuine attraction for your partner. Like I feel like that's important, and I always felt vain that mattered to me, and vain that wasn't something that I really felt as much for my other partners. And it's great. It's really nice to have that actual true sense of attraction physically and like and emotionally and spiritually with somebody. I feel like we've just been like truly just growing together so much, and I'm really grateful for that.
It's so sad how the LDS Church will take, you know, some of the most beautiful parts of life and of people and turn them into these sources of pain when they don't need to be. So I'm so glad you've been able to now, you know, like you said, it's such a blessing to be a woman who loves women. You make a lot of TikTok and Instagram content, giving advice to, you call them gabies, newly gay people, or newly out or whatever. Yeah, I love the stuff you do. I love your videos on compulsive heteronormativity. You guys should go check those out. I am curious what advice you have for our people who are watching this who are maybe still in the closet or still in a Mormon family, whether they're, you know, in high school and they're still living at home, or maybe someone who's in a Mormon marriage like you were. What advice do you have for people in those kind of various situations?
That's hard because I feel like all those situations are so different.
I know, I think I'm doing a bad job interviewing because I'm like lumping 4 questions in everyone. Why don't we start with like high school or, you know, young kids who are sort of just starting to realize, oh shit, I might be gay?
This is an interesting one for me. One of my siblings actually came out as non-binary and pansexual, and it's been interesting talking to them about it, because obviously we have the same parents, but we have vastly different coming out experiences, and it's really difficult for them. I love my parents, and they've tried to be as loving and accepting as they possibly can, and they do really love my sibling a lot. But of course, my sibling is 13, and so it's a much different coming out experience than for me, since I was already out of the house and able to make whatever choices I want. I've thought about this a lot, actually, like what a blessing it is for you to be able, or that's so Mormon talk, how amazing it is for you to be able to like start figuring that out about yourself so young, but also like how fucking hard is it to like be figuring these things out about yourself, but to be living in a situation where you don't feel like you fully can be yourself, or like you have to deal with the constant judgment of others, or like rules and stuff in the household, because my sibby has to still wear a dress and go to church every Sunday, which is really, really difficult for them. And I know, and I'm not angry at my parents. I know they're doing the best that they can, and obviously they think the Mormon church is what's like the happiest thing for everybody. So I'm not angry at them, but I guess I want to say, trust yourself and trust your gut. This is honestly what I tell everybody. But if you feel a certain way, first of all, I want you to know that it is totally valid for you to come out as one thing and then change your mind as you go, and like as you grow and as you figure yourself out. Because I came out as bisexual at first, and that is in no way mean to like invalidate bisexuality, because I think it genuinely is such a real thing. But for me, I came out as bisexual and then eventually realized that I was a lesbian, and I think that happens in reverse for people, or just people experience different. You get older and you feel like you realize what labels fit you the best. So one, I want to say, no matter what other people are telling you, and if you feel invalidated by your family or your friends, just know that it is totally okay if you come out as one label and then decide that something else fits you better later. Also, I personally don't think you owe an explanation to everybody. I don't think that you have to like come out to everybody. I don't think you have to like tell your parents and your family everything about your life if you feel like it's something that's like almost sacred to you and special to you, and you don't think that other people will respond well. You don't owe that to anyone else. Like, no details need to be shared. I get that like being in the closet is its own kind of hell, but it's kind of up to you to decipher like what feels safest to you, whether it's to be open with your family or not. I have multiple friends with LDS parents who have had a wide spectrum of experiences, from either their parents being very accepting to being disowned, and that's really unfortunate and it's really sad. But at your age, I feel like you need to just listen to your gut and what feels right to you, whether that's being out and open or not. And even if you are out with your parents, you don't have to give them every detail of your love life or of your coming out process with yourself. If you are figuring out new things about yourself, you don't have to share that with them if it doesn't feel like a safe place. And I'm sorry if you have to still go to church, that's something that doesn't feel valid to you. It's hard, but I mean, you can be practicing your own spiritual habits or whatever when you're outside of that. And you don't have to be really paying attention during church if you don't want to. It sucks. I'm sorry that is a thing for certain people, but time will pass and you will be able to get out of the house eventually.
Yeah, we get a lot of messages from kids asking us what to do if they're sort of trapped in a Mormon household, and you know, gay, straight or otherwise. What I always say is just really try to anchor yourself in your own identity, whatever that looks like. So maybe you journal a lot, or you know, just you're allowed to reaffirm your identity to yourself and kind of find ways to do that so you don't get lost.
Yeah, and I also would say one other thing. I feel like I shed a lot of my shame when I started finding other people who were LGBT around me. At first, I didn't know any queer people. I genuinely didn't really have any queer friends until like this last year. And that was a very lonely process for me trying to figure myself out. I felt like I was completely alone. And so I started finding, like I said, YouTubers and content creators and musicians that made queer music and people that made me feel less alone. There's also like, I feel like TikTok and Instagram, like it's so much more open now that I think it's so much easier to find people, even if you don't know anyone nearby you that's queer. I feel like you can easily make queer friends online now and have people to at least talk to about it. And I think creating some kind of support system is huge in eliminating some of those shame cycles and feeling like you are whole as a person.
Your story is such a good example of what a process discovering your sexuality is, especially when you add, being a part of a high demand religion to that equation. But I think what's so amazing about what you do on your TikTok and Instagram and other creators like you is you're hopefully making it so that less people have to go through, a miserable Mormon marriage to get to that point where they can love and accept themselves. You're really helping accelerate self-love in people, which is so amazing. And like you said, growing up you didn't have any of that, and now just like 10 years later, how cool that young people get to have that.
Oh my god, I would have figured myself out so much sooner if we had TikTok back then and everyone was as open. And that's a huge passion of mine and something I've wanted to talk about publicly for years. Is just basically I've wanted to help people feel less alone. And I used to just like sob thinking about anyone knowing that I liked girls because I had such deep shame and I felt like everyone would think I was disgusting for that, and that's so inaccurate. And I guess I just really want to be able to like cut those cycles for people and help people figure it out sooner and realize that they are whole and beautiful as they are.
Yeah, which I definitely think you're doing. I'm curious to ask you now what your advice is for people who are LGBTQ plus and are in a straight Mormon marriage, especially because I imagine that in that situation, depending on the relationship, I think a lot of people do have a lot of genuine love for the person they're married to, which I think can make it hard. So what's your advice?
This is my piece of advice always for everybody, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but you need to trust your gut. I feel like, especially being born into Mormonism and having all these ideas shoved down your throat for so long, we are kind of taught to suppress that side of ourselves, that like inner knowing and that really listening to ourselves. And I would have these thoughts and these literal thoughts coming to me from my higher self, from my like intuition, from my gut, and I just like would tell myself that they were bad or shameful or that I was bad for feeling that way. And that's so inaccurate. When I finally started to like learn how to like listen to myself and trust my gut is when I started to like really realize what I was supposed to do. I knew deep in my gut for probably like a year and a half, 2 years that I wanted to get a divorce and that this wasn't going to work out long term and that this wasn't a good situation for me. But it took me that long to really trust myself and do it. There's nobody but you that knows what you need, and you can try to push back past it and pretend like you don't know, but like those feelings are going to come up for you and you're not bad for feeling them. It's your inner self telling you what you need. And I would practice mindfulness and meditation and actually be open to what the universe has to say to you, to what your highest self has to say to you. And that sounds really woo-woo, but like I think we all know what we need for ourselves. And I'm not saying necessarily that that's a divorce. Every situation is so complex, but I think fine-tuning your relationship with yourself is the only way that you're really going to find the answer to that question.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. I've been talking so much lately about how we all have this innate wisdom that I think society and high demand religions really like block us from accessing. Like there's so much natural intelligence our bodies and our minds have. And in my experience being a life coach for the last year, like it's really amazing how much people deep down, even when they think they don't, do know what they need. But we're so used to disconnecting from certain feelings. Like I imagine with you, whenever, attraction to women came up, you're trying to block it. And so you're not able to listen to it and connect to your authentic needs. And obviously anytime we aren't connecting to what we need, we aren't going to be able to meet our needs and we're going to be miserable. And that's just one of the really sad things about high demand religions.
Mm-hmm. You're connecting negative anchors to feelings.
We talked a little bit about, obviously, your social media stuff that you do. You're also a musician. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get started making music? And just as a little, four-note, that's not a thing. Ash Morgan has been a huge inspiration to me musically. I'm still very much at the beginning of my journey, but yeah, she's made a big impact on my creativity and willingness to embrace it. So just a quick thank you for that.
That makes me so happy. I really just genuinely think everybody should make music. I wanted to be a singer and writer since I can even remember. I love writing lyrics. I actually maybe love writing a little more than I love singing, but I do love singing as well. And just bringing the whole thing together, creating like a vision. It's funny because even in my marriage, I had like these thoughts of like I want to be a singer, and I want to be like a queer singer, like a really like gay themed singer, and like help just like create these songs that like have like she pronouns and stuff in it, and people like can hear it and be like, oh shit, like I'm not alone, like there's somebody else who like seems super normal who feels the same way as me. And yeah, I actually started creating music when I was in a relationship with a man after my divorce, and I still had that same vision, you know, but just the boyfriend was a little more difficult. But my first song that I ever wrote, I actually wrote about my boyfriend while we were in that relationship. He knows that now, and he's surprisingly really cool with it. But it's called Halfway. It's about basically, I think a lot of you queers, or just honestly anyone, can relate to this feeling of like, is this feeling that I'm feeling love? Like it's the best thing I've felt so far, but is this actually what people are talking about when they talk about love? Because I had such a deep connection with him, but I didn't, like it felt like something was missing, which obviously it was. And I'm actually writing almost like a sequel to that song right now. It's going to be on my EP at the beginning of the year. It has some allusions to the lyrics in Halfway, and is kind of a sequel to that. It's called Just Not Her, so look out for that.
Very Taylor Swift of you to do callbacks. I love seeing the evolution of your sexuality throughout your songs, because obviously the first song you released when I was first getting to know you, it was Halfway. And then you did Ice, which I know is a lot of your experiences in a Mormon marriage. And then Favorite Sin is probably my favorite, just because it feels just so you. I'll put a clip of that right here so you guys can enjoy. So tell us a little bit more about this song.
It's really exciting because Favorite Sin is the first overtly queer song that I released, which is kind of the vision I'm wanting to work towards, is that people can listen to it and quite obviously tell that it's about another girl, and I wrote it about my girlfriend Mac, and it has a lot of religious imagery in there, just kind of going off of my experiences of being told my whole life how bad of a thing my love for women was, but how it feels so much more beautiful than anything else that I've ever experienced. So yeah, it's been a great ride being in such a happy relationship, and I'm really excited that I got to actually write about it, and look forward to many more queer songs coming up.
Well, if you guys are looking for, lesbian couple inspo, definitely make sure you go follow Ash Morgan on all the socials. We'll have everything linked in the description box. If you have any questions for Ash, put them in the comments. I'm sure she'd be willing to swing by and answer them.
This is the woman, the myth, the legend that inspired Favorite Sin, my lovely girlfriend, Matt. Cute. Hi. So great being gay with you. I love it. And it was nice talking to all you guys. And I hope you guys feel whole in who you are, and at least can get to a point where you feel that way.
Okay, my battery's dying, so we're going to have to do a rush outro as usual. Ash, thank you so much for being here. I think you're an inspiration to so many young, not even just young people, just LGBTQ people across the board. So thanks for doing this.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Cutie.